Welcome to Bittonville, where tech thrives on caffeine and code. Bittonville, population nerds. Okay, not just nerds, but mostly. This city is a melting pot of tech enthusiasts, dreamers, and innovators, all driven by a shared passion for technology and a relentless pursuit of the next big breakthrough. This wasn't your average Silicon Valley wannabe. Bittonville had its own unique charm, a blend of quirky creativity and cutting-edge technology that set it apart from the rest. Bittonville was built on ramen noodles, late-night coding sessions, and an unshakable belief that the next big thing was just around the corner, probably hidden behind a stack of empty energy drink cans. Here, the night was as alive as the day, with the glow of computer screens lighting up the darkness. The air buzzed with the sound of furiously tapping keyboards and the occasional triumphant shout of Eureka! Or more accurately, it compiled. Every keystroke was a step closer to innovation, every line of code a potential game changer. This was a place where ideas went from scribbles on napkins to world-changing apps faster than you could say venture capitalist. Collaboration was key, and every brainstorming session was a hive of activity, with minds working in perfect harmony. Nestled in the heart of this digital jungle was Marvin Finkelbaum, a name that echoed through the corridors of Bittonville, synonymous with genius and innovation. Imagine a young Albert Einstein crossed with a caffeinated owl, and you'd be halfway there. Marvin was a whirlwind of energy and intellect, always on the move, always thinking, always creating. Marvin wasn't just smart, he was scary smart. The kind of smart that made you wonder if he was secretly building a time machine in his garage. Spoiler alert, he was. His mind was a labyrinth of ideas, each more complex and brilliant than the last. The kind of smart that made you wonder if he was secretly building a time machine in his garage. Spoiler alert, he was. His garage was a treasure trove of gadgets and gizmos, each one a testament to his boundless creativity and technical prowess. But Marvin had a problem. He was bored. The world, it seemed, was just a tad too slow for his lightning-fast brain. He needed something more, something that could match his pace and challenge his intellect. The world, it seemed, was just a tad too slow for his lightning-fast brain. He yearned for a challenge, a grand adventure, something to shake things up. He wanted to push the boundaries of what was possible, to explore uncharted territories of technology. He yearned for a challenge, a grand adventure, something to shake things up. He wanted to create something that would leave a lasting impact, something that would change the world. Marvin surveyed his kingdom of motherboards and tangled wires. His workspace was a chaotic symphony of technology, each component a piece of a larger puzzle that only he could see. He had created self-toasting toasters, self-folding laundry baskets, even a robot dog that could fetch beer and play air guitar simultaneously. But it wasn't enough. These inventions, while impressive, were just the beginning for Marvin. The world needed more Marvin. It needed a revolution. And Marvin was ready to lead the charge. He was ready to take his ideas to the next level, to create something truly extraordinary. And as he stared at the emoji keyboard on his phone, a mischievous glint sparked in his eye. He knew that the next big thing was just a keystroke away, and he was ready to make it happen. The world was about to witness the brilliance of Marvin Finkelbaum, and it would never be the same again. Emojis, those tiny, ubiquitous symbols of the digital age. They were everywhere. In text messages, on social media, even plastered across billboards. To Marvin, they represented the ultimate form of communication. Concise, expressive, and ripe for disruption. An idea began to form in his mind. An idea so audacious, so utterly ridiculous that it had to be brilliant. He would steal all the emojis. But Marvin, you might ask, how can you steal something that exists only in the digital realm? But that's where you underestimate Marvin Finkelbaum's genius and his complete disregard for the laws of physics and common sense. You see, Marvin knew that somewhere, deep in the bowels of the internet, there existed a master database of emojis, a digital Fort Knox, if you will, where these precious symbols were stored and guarded. The more he thought about it, the more exhilarating the idea became. He was going to crack it wide open. He envisioned a world thrown into chaos by his emoji escapade. News channels would erupt with headlines like "Emoji Apocalypse," and "Have we used our last laughing face?" He'd be a legend, a digital Robin Hood, taking back the emojis from the faceless corporations and giving them back to the people. Or at least, that's how he justified it to himself between bites of cold pizza and sips of energy drinks. This wasn't about fame or fortune, though a little notoriety wouldn't hurt. No, this was about something far more important. This was about sending a message. This was about, well, He hadn't quite figured that part out yet, but it was going to be epic. Marvin spent countless nights planning his grand scheme. His room became a war room filled with diagrams, notes, and digital blueprints. His eyes burned with a fervor that only true visionaries possess. He was on a mission. He wrote lines of code, each keystroke bringing him closer to his goal. The digital fortress was formidable, but Marvin was relentless. Hours turned into days and days into weeks. Marvin's determination never wavered, even as exhaustion set in. He took deep breaths, cracked his knuckles, and dove back into his work with renewed vigor. Failure was not an option. The clock ticked away the late hours, but Marvin's resolve only grew stronger. He was on the brink of something monumental, and then, one fateful night, it happened. Marvin broke through the digital defenses. He had done it. His screen filled with emojis and his face lit up with pure joy. The world was about to change. As the emojis vanished from screens worldwide, chaos ensued. People were bewildered, confused, and desperate. News anchors frantically reported on the crisis, and social media was in an uproar. Marvin had achieved his goal. Marvin watched the news with a satisfied smile, taking a sip of his energy drink. He had sent his message, but as the initial thrill wore off, Marvin's face turned serious. He began to contemplate the consequences of his actions. People struggled to communicate without emojis, and Marvin felt a pang of guilt. Had he gone too far? He sat at his desk, deep in thought, surrounded by his notes and diagrams. The weight of his actions pressed heavily on him, but then his determination returned. He began typing furiously on his keyboard once more. He had a new plan. This time, he would restore the emojis, but with a twist. He would make them free for everyone, forever. As emojis reappeared on screens worldwide, people rejoiced. Marvin watched with a smile, knowing he had made a difference. His grand emoji scheme had come full circle. Marvin Finkelbaum had become a legend. Not for stealing, but for giving back. And as he walked away from his computer looking out the window, he knew that this was just the beginning of his digital adventures. The end of one chapter, and the start of another. Every good heist needs a partner in crime, and Marvin knew just the person. Enter Becky Hex Hannigan, a whirlwind of purple hair, ripped fishnets, and more coding talent in her little finger than most people had in their entire keyboard-pounding hands. Hex was a force of nature, a punk rock programming prodigy who could write code faster than she could down a shot of espresso, and that was saying something. Her reputation in the underground coding community was legendary. She had a knack for turning the most mundane lines of code into something extraordinary, almost like a digital alchemist. Their first meeting was the stuff of Bittonville legend. Marvin was presenting his latest invention, a self-watering cactus that also played Mozart, when Hex stormed into the room, her Doc Martens leaving black scuff marks on the polished floor. The room was filled with tech enthusiasts, all eager to see Marvin's latest creation. But Hex had other plans. She took one look at his invention, snorted with laughter, and proceeded to hack into the system, making the cactus belt out a death metal rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Marvin was smitten. It wasn't just her audacity that caught his attention. It was her skill, her flair for the dramatic, and her ability to turn something as simple as a tech demo into a spectacle. Here, finally, was someone who matched his own brand of chaotic brilliance. They quickly became an unstoppable duo, each feeding off the other's energy and creativity. Hex, naturally, thought Marvin's emoji heist plan was completely bonkers. She was used to pushing boundaries, but this was something else entirely. "You want to steal emojis?" she'd asked incredulously, her eyebrow ring glinting under the dim light of the diner where they were hatching their plan. The idea seemed absurd, even to someone as unconventional as Hex. Seriously? That's the hill you're willing to die on? She couldn't wrap her head around the concept at first. Stealing emojis? It sounded like a joke. But Marvin, with his infectious enthusiasm and his knack for explaining even the most ludicrous ideas with a straight face, managed to convince her. He painted a picture of a world where they could control the digital language of emotions, where they could become legends in the hacker community. Perhaps it was his sheer audacity, or maybe it was the promise of unlimited pizza after they pulled off the heist, whatever the reason Hex was in. She saw the potential for chaos, for making a mark on the digital world in a way that no one else had ever done. And with Hex on board, Marvin knew that nothing could stop them. Well, almost nothing. They were about to embark on a journey that would test their skills, their friendship, and their ability to think outside the box. The world of digital heists was about to get a lot more interesting. The plan, if you could call it that, was as audacious as it was ridiculous. It involved grappling hooks, a dozen raspberry pies, the computer kind, not the delicious kind, much to Hex's disappointment, a modified Roomba disguised as a cleaning bot, and an unhealthy amount of caffeine. Their target, the Unicode Consortium headquarters, a nondescript office building in the heart of Silicon Valley, where the fate of all emojis was decided. Their plan, dubbed Operation Emoji Exodus, was scribbled on the back of a takeout menu, a testament to their genius and their chronic inability to afford actual notebooks. Phase 1, Infiltration. Hex would cause a city-wide blackout by accidentally strumming her electric guitar too close to a power line, while Marvin, disguised as a pizza delivery guy, a role he was surprisingly convincing at, would slip past security during the chaos. Phase 2, the heist. Marvin would unleash his trusty sidekick, the Roomba bot, loaded with hacking software, into the labyrinthine corridors of the Unicode building, its mission to locate the server room where the emoji database was stored. Phase 3, the escape. Once the Roomba had downloaded the entire emoji library, they'd upload it to the cloud, releasing it for free to the world, before making their getaway on Hex's souped-up scooter. Simple, foolproof. What could possibly go wrong?